So the election of 1800 was decided because people really didn't like John Adams and they didn't like the Federalists in the later part of John Adams' presidency. Now, it really came down to, the major problem came down to the foreign policy of the Federalists. And the foreign policy was about who should be America's ally. Right? So the Federalists believed that America's allies should be the British. Right? The British share a common language, religion, culture, but they were the enemy very recently, so that's slightly problematic. Or should the Americans ally with the French, right? The French helped during the American Revolution, but otherwise they share nothing in common with Americans. Well, until the French Revolution, which is the second revolution in the world next to the American Revolution. But in that revolution, they chopped off people's heads. And it wasn't exactly clear, did the Americans ally with the French people or the French monarchy, which is now destroyed? So that's a little bit tenuous, but in general, the Federalists support allying with the British, and the Americans support the Republicans support allying with the French. So Jefferson is very excited about France. He thinks it's great that they're having a revolution. Here we see some images that come out of some portrayals of what's going on in France. You see someone being guillotined, you see parades, and even the Federalists are excited about having another republic in the world, right? They changed their mind in 1793 when Louis XIV is guillotined, because the French Revolution is so radical in 1790 that other elites and aristocrats are worried that they will be next, right? France has a lot of aristocrats that the United States doesn't have, but the French people are sending their elites to the guillotine, and they start worrying that this is going to happen in America. So this is in 1793 that Louis XIV is guillotined. 1794, remember, is when the Whiskey Rebellion is going on. So there's this fear that similar types of radical action is going to happen in America, right? They're worried, Federalists are worried that this is going to happen to them, right? Jefferson says, don't worry about it. This is a means to an end. There's special circumstances. They're not us. That we can still ally with them. They're another republic. It's all for the people. But the Federalists see France as a nightmare, right? And they worry that that's going to happen in the United States. So the Federalists think that Jefferson and the Republicans are out to destroy America. And Jeffersons think that Federalists are basically like the British as they were before the American Revolution. And it's equally dangerous to the American Constitution. And here you can see another portrayal of France as being corrupt, as being really problematic, with this sort of drunken, sort of slovenly dressed portrayal of France in the backyard background next to the guillotine, the very sort of multiracial population of France, and sort of many-headed person who's going to fool the Americans who are going to ally with them. So in 1796, there's the first contested election in American history. The electoral colleges have each 2 votes, and so each person in the electoral college votes twice, right? The person who gets the highest number of votes becomes president, the one with the second highest number becomes vice president. The results are that John Adams, who's a Federalist, becomes president, and Thomas Jefferson becomes the vice president, which is very awkward, right? 2 different parties in the White House together. It's a very close election, too, because of people still like the Federalist stability, but they're increasingly turning to Jeffersonians because of the idea of the Whiskey Rebellion, which they really don't like. So they don't like that it was put down in the way it was. So John Adams is the new president. He's not a hero. He's not a commanding figure, and he's in fact often known as his rotundity because he's quite large. But he's very smart, but he's also very thin-skinned and very insecure. Now, in 1796, France is not very happy with America's support of their revolution, right? America had declared themselves neutral between France and England, but had made a trade agreement with Britain, which is called the Jay's Treaty. And America stopped paying their debt to France from the American Revolution because they declared that they had owed the French king the money and not the French people, which makes the French Republic not very happy. So France starts attacking American merchant ships, and they say they will stop attacking if America pays France a large sum of money, about $250,000, right? So the Federalists are very angry at France, and they start portraying France as sort of corrupt and scheming, drunken poor, as the previous image showed. Now, the Federalists under John Adams prepare for war in France, which never actually happened. It's called quasi-war. But in preparation for that, they passed what was called the Alien and Sedition Act, right? They're passed in 1798. They expire in 1801, just before the next president is due to take office. Now, the Alien and Sedition Acts do two things. The first is that it makes it harder for aliens, that is, non-American citizens, to become citizens, right? It used to be 5 years before you become citizens. The Alien and Sedition Act changes it to 14 years. Now, this is partly because new migrants tend to be in favor of Jeffersonian, right? They like this idea of social mobility, and they also tend to be Irish, which are very anti-British, right? So this is a policy to stop the Jeffersonians in their trek. It also allows the government to deport any resident alien or to detain any enemy alien. Now, in addition, the Alien Sedition Act makes it a crime to publish false, scandalous, and malicious writings against the government or its officials. Again, John Adams is quite thin-skinned. Only 15 people are ever persecuted under the Sedition Act, and most of them are editors of papers. So one man named James D. Callender, who's the editor of one of the major newspapers, he did stories on Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. He did a story on Hamilton, who paid the husband of his mistress to not say anything. So these stories come out. Both of them we know are true. But the editors still got, because they were malicious in some ways, they still got punished. Now, one of the sort of famous people who gets punished under the Sedition Act is a man named Matthew Lyons, and he's the governor of New Hampshire, but he's also a very vocal critic of John Adams. And here's an image of Matthew Lyons getting into a fight on the floor of Congress with Roger Griswold. So Lyons is of New Hampshire, and then later Vermont, and then later Kentucky, and Griswold is a Federalist of Connecticut. Now, Lyons is holding the tongs, and he was well known for speaking against Federalists, and Hamilton in particular. He made a remark about the Federalists. Griswold made fun of his ability to put that particular idea into practice because Lyons has sort of a lackluster military record. Lyons gets insulted, spits at Griswold in the face. Lyons is censured, but not kicked out of Congress. 2 weeks later, Griswold comes in and hits Lyons with a cane. Lyons picks up the tongs, and they start duking it out on the floor of Congress. And then neither one are kicked out or censured because of this, although there is a debate on whether that should happen. Lyons is then taken to jail later for sedition. He was reelected for his seat in Senate, even though he was in jail. Now, Jefferson's response to the Alien Sedition Act when he becomes president is the Kentucky and Virginia Resolves of 1798. The Kentucky and Virginia Resolves are penned by him and Madison, and it says that because the Constitution says we the people, it should really be we the states, right? And so the President and the Federal Congress are in violation of the Constitution when they pass the Alien Sedition Acts, because it is against the states, and it's against the states determining who is a citizen and who is not, right? So they claim that the state can nullify the Alien Sedition Act in their states. So Virginia and Kentucky, they nullify the Alien Sedition Acts in their states, but really this is an issue that has to be solved through the election of 1800, whether or not this is a law that goes through or not. And it's not exactly clear to most people whether or not this is a lawful, whether the Alien Sedition are lawful or not.